Another one last night to the Kings. Cleveland has now lost 6 of their past 8 games after starting the season 28-8. The last time LeBron James lost 6 of 8 games that he played in was March of 2011. And new this morning, multiple sources tell ESPN.com that tension between LeBron and the Cavs leadership is centered around payroll spending. Stephen A., where does this leave Cleveland?
Well, it leaves David Griffin having the unenviable task of having to go out there and get requisite second-tier pieces to satisfy LeBron James. Because even though they had a discussion, even though LeBron James is a professional, personified, and he's going to go out there and do his job, there's something to be said about stepping out on the basketball court and legitimately believing you can beat the team you're going up against. With all of this bantering, with all of this chirping going around, it's clear that LeBron has serious questions about whether or not this team is equipped to compete with Golden State and San Antonio. That's why you've got this argument. This is what LeBron is playing for. LeBron ain't worried about everything else. LeBron's worried about June because that's what LeBron plays for. And he's looking at this roster right now, and he's saying what he's saying, which is why David Griffin and others had to have a conversation with them, because they're pointing out that how you're publicizing your lack of belief in your teammates. Now, LeBron might view it differently. He might not have interpreted it as such. He might think that the Cleveland Cavaliers are dragging their feet because they were prone to do that in years past, which also led to him departing for South Beach to begin with. Let's not forget that. But in the end, what this comes down to is all in the hands of David Griffin. J.R. Smith's got to get healthy. I love the Kyle Korver acquisition. David Griffin is the same guy that got Timothy Mozgov, that got a guy like Amon Shumpert and a J.R. Smith. And, you know, he signed Kevin Love and whatever, got Kevin Love after he acquired LeBron James, got Kevin Love from Minnesota. Let's give the man some credit and the belief that he could get it done, but let's also recognize he's going to have to get it done. And by the way, Max Kellerman, you brought up the fact that it's mid-season stuff and all of that stuff. I would remind you that Clyde Drexler went to Houston in mid-season when they won a title. I would remind you that Mark Aguirre went to Detroit in mid-season when they won a title. This is not the only time in history that a champion ended up making a mid-season acquisition prior to the championship and still ended up winning the crown, just so you know.
That's true. It's happened before. Carmelo Anthony on that team as an offensive option might be, if not the primary, the secondary offensive option. As an offensive option, we've seen him and LeBron play together in the past in the Olympics, and LeBron and others love using Carmelo as a primary offensive option. I think that's actually a bigger piece than Clyde Drexler or Aguirre or others who joined those championship teams. But okay, we will debate that going forward, I'm sure. As it relates to where this leaves the Cavs, leaves them on top of the East. I mean, look, do people really think that if LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers finish second or third in the East, they're not going to make the finals? Who's going to knock them out exactly? Who's it going to be, the Celtics or who are we, Toronto? Someone's going to knock the Cavs out of the East in the playoffs? LeBron James with a squad, they're going to get knocked out? No. No one believes that. Not a single person that I've seen or read is arguing that. And your own brain won't accept that. Of course the Cavs are going to make the finals, even if they don't finish first in the East. So where does that leave them? While they're looking for a backup point guard, which LeBron has said, and I mentioned this when the Korver trade first went down, they really need a backup point guard. A Dellavedova type shouldn't be that hard to figure out how to acquire by the deadline, but we'll see. While they're doing that, you know what I would suggest? Rest LeBron for like a week or two, and then rest Kyrie for like a week or two. Because you don't have to worry about the East if you're the Cavs. And now I know players and coaches on the Cavs, we have to worry. That's why yeah, you do. I'm saying to all the Cavs fans and the rest of the world, we already know that LeBron and company will take care of business in the Eastern Conference and wind up in the finals. So as you said, Stephen A., since all LeBron is thinking about is that chip, give yourself the best chance to win it. And absent some blockbuster trade, the likes of which you're discussing, or for some great backup point guard, you got to rest your guys. That's LeBron. That's Kyrie. Don't sweat it. The East ain't got nothing for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
They don't have anything for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And your point would be relevant if LeBron James was alluding to anybody in the East. He clearly is not. He clearly is concerned about two teams. He's concerned about the Warriors or he's concerned about the Spurs. Everybody and their grandmother knows one of the two is coming out of the West. You're going to have to face them. What are you going to do about that?
Are we conceding that it might be the Spurs now coming out of the West?
No, we're not conceding that at all. We're just saying that you have to respect them enough because they're there. They're present. They find a way to win. Whether Kawhi Leonard is playing or not, whether LaMarcus Aldridge is playing or not, whether Tony Parker is playing or not. Somehow, some way, Greg Popovich seems to come up with ways to beat everybody.
That was a hell of a game
them.
last Saturday night when they beat Cleveland.
That's right.
On the road, and Kawhi went crazy.
And he dropped 40 for the first time in his career. But what I'm saying to you is that San Antonio has always has given LeBron James teams trouble because Greg Popovich knows how to coach against LeBron. And if there is a defender in the NBA, the Joe Dumars to a Michael Jordan per se, that you would want for LeBron, would it not be Kawhi Leonard defending LeBron?
Lied, yeah.
Of course that's the case. And so because of that, you have to pay attention to it. LeBron James is paying attention to the boys out west and saying, what can we do to beat them? Because here's the thing. I don't believe LeBron wants to go to a finals again. If it's a loss, he'd rather lose earlier.
Well, look,
why go to the finals? Why even bother? It's all about winning the chip.
When Golden State acquired Kevin Durant, I think that was already, you looked at the Cavs, and it took every single thing they had to barely overcome Golden State, who couldn't buy a point in the last 4 or 5 minutes of that Game 7 at home, to barely squeak by them, and Golden State was up 3-1 at one point in that series. Once they had Kevin Durant, hey, LeBron and company, guess what? You know, we don't believe you. You need more people. Well, that was true since the Durant trade.
You're right, and I definitely appreciate those lines, no doubt. But here's the deal. It goes back to David Griffin for this other reason. David Griffin is caught in the middle between a beef between LeBron James and Dan Gilbert. Okay, that much is obvious. But here's where David Griffin's profile elevates and really elevates him into the picture. He has not been shy about essentially having an attitude, look, damn it, do your job and I'll do mine. That's been his attitude, and he's been relatively defiant. One has to surmise he has the authority to be that way because it's given to him by Dan Gilbert. Understand that. Understand that Tyronn Lue was always David Griffin's choice. It was Dan Gilbert who insisted that David Blatt be the coach that first go round. That wasn't David Griffin. David Griffin always wanted Tyronn Lue, so now that he's in the position where he's going back and forth publicly with LeBron, he's going to have to make a move.
Stephen A., we got to leave it on that note. And if you like that discussion, you do not want to miss a huge one coming up later in the show. Can't wait for this. If you could have one guy to close out a game, you taking LeBron or KD? Go on Twitter now, cast your vote. We'll share those results a little later in the show. Coming up, speaking of decisions, they are about to play in their 7th Super Bowl together with a chance at their 5th title. But if you could only have Tom Brady or Bill Belichick,